Samuel, the world is filled with magical places. Some of them are natural, like Banff National Park in Canada, or where your mom and dad filmed some part of The Bachelor, or the Africa, everywhere. There's every continent has some incredible places. Here in Mexico, where I'm living, are just unbelievable. And there's a lot of also a lot of man-made wonders of the world. And one of them that I visited that I still have very fond memories of was in Cambodia. It's called Angkor Wat. When I was there in the late 60s, it was before the awful carnage of the Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge started. So it was a very peaceful, almost like a small town France feeling to it. And walking around in Angkor Wat and was like being in Phnom Penh. Phnom Penh, it was a beautiful city. You could buy a loaf of French bread from someone selling on the corner. You could. One day I was walking through the streets, and I decided to join a group of Buddhist monks who were dressed in their orange robes. And when I found one who spoke English. He said that they were studying. They all had to do 1 year of service in a Buddhist monastery as a young person, and that's what they were doing. So I walked around with them, and we had a really nice chat. Things like this would happen in Phnom Penh all the time. Um, but getting out of the city into Angkor Wat was even more interesting, um, because the American government didn't like the government of Cambodia at that time, led by Norodom Sihanouk. It had told American citizens to avoid going to Cambodia. And their loss was my gain because it meant that it was less crowded, uh, less congested, fewer people competing to get into the same places, and getting around was a lot easier. So one day I walked to the bus station and I found the public bus going up to Angkor Wat, or the city near there, which is called Siem Reap. And I got in this public bus, and there were villagers sitting in the back who were. One of them was holding a chicken. Somebody else had a big bag of seed grain on his lap, and but in the front, along with me, there were two Frenchmen. And it turned out that the Frenchmen were in Phnom Penh or Angkor Wat or Cambodia as part of a 2 year service duty. Instead of going into the army, they had an option of spending 2 years teaching French in Cambodia. So that's what these two guys were doing, and they had been to Siem Reap before, and so we had a nice chat in the public bus going up. It was a couple of hours, and then when we got there, they invited me to come along, and we could all share a hotel room together in this small city of Siem Reap. And it was a very quaint, quiet little hotel room with a ceiling fan and the polished wooden floors, and it was beautiful. And we stayed there the night, and the next morning we got up and we had breakfast, a continental breakfast with a couple of Frenchmen. That's the real deal. And it was a big, the French like these huge cups of cafe au lait, and with two croissants. They were magnificent, beautiful, delicious croissants. And then we went around the corner to this little shop and rented a bicycle and hopped on our three bicycles and rode off. And it was about a 20-minute ride on the bicycle until we were reaching the Angkor Wat temple complex. And it was just huge and magnificent. And after we had checked out the main temple building, we kept going and there was Angkor Wat, and there were a couple of other smaller temples there that were in the jungle. And the jungle had taken back some of these temple buildings. So it was this amazing psychedelic experience to be on a little country road on your bicycle, turn the corner, and suddenly right before you, looking at you outside of these overgrown jungle trees, was a huge stone of a face of a Buddha, looking at you very benignly. And the jungle was taking back. It was dismantling some of these old buildings, but they're so picturesque. And so we rode around um, the complex and just marveled at the incredible engineering and city planning that had gone into this complex. And then we went back, and the next day we stayed one more night in the hotel, and the next day I took the bus back into Phnom Penh to continue my visits. And the next day I got to visit the family of a Cambodian Buddhist monk who I had gotten to know in Bangalore. And they were government officials, a very nice family. They took really good care of me. Um, and I became very worried a year or two later when the news started coming out about the terrible things that were happening to Cambodian people. Because my friend's family were political appointees or officials, I was afraid that the anti-government revolutionaries might have harmed them. And it took me about 15 years before I finally found someone. The monk friend of mine had passed away at age 100, I think 101. But I spoke to someone who had worked with him at a temple here in America, who said that my friend's family had gotten out okay. So that was a relief to hear. But Cambodia has gone through a lot of changes since then, and it's really beautiful. But I'll never forget that very quiet, peaceful adventure that I had with my two French friends and the Buddhist faces in the jungle of Angkor Wat. So keep adventuring. You figure out where you're going next, and we can talk about it. And I might have some suggestions for you, at least on how to pack your bags. So take care, Samuel, and take care of your mom and dad, and we'll talk soon. Bye.